So we went to the same place for the first two.
So let's see it.
And then the last one before COVID, we went where we went this time. But I've always been home sort of by like 10ish.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't.
How's work and everything going?
To get on with, like, I don't dislike them, but they're not my sort of thing.
You're from Canada, right?
Yeah, and I have a good time while I was out, but you know, they've got.
You were here for a kind of a research project, or I think we had a conversation about that.
Yeah, I don't know these people.
My girlfriend's studying at Cambridge.
Yes,
Yeah, but it was.
And I'm here working.
Oh yeah, nice. What do you do?
I'm in finance.
It was nice because
I'm in finance.
Alright, cool, great. How does that work if like,
I've not got anyone.
just giving your girlfriend visa, like,
And so it was sweet, really, but
you guys
it
want it, or is it through your work?
Because of that, partly because
Which came first?
We both came over from Canada, and she applied and got a student visa sponsored by Cambridge. And actually, like the work visas here, they usually depending on the employer and depending on the type of visa, can cost a couple like £1,000 for the employer to sponsor you.
You have to pay £20,000 to just get the visa.
Well, the employers would have to put that out,
Okay,
depending on which visa it is and what they do.
yeah.
But So what I thought was that I don't really have a problem because I've been working online. But the main idea was that I thought it would be more convenient to come in as a dependent on her student visa. Just simply that it's just basically a spouse visa. Yeah. And it works really nice because there's pretty much no restrictions to it. Whatsoever.
You can work, you can do whatever.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's good. Yeah, nice one.
Yeah.
Sooner or later it'll fly off
really
if
good.
you lift the clippers.
And how you finding it so far here? Like, how would you compare Canada to UK?
I think I really like it. Yeah. There's a few noticeable differences, but really overall it's quite similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Which it isn't too surprising,
if
right?
you're not prepared for it, it's like it does make you jump. If you try and cut someone's
where I'm from in Canada, southern Ontario, right? A lot of Canada, the population is highly concentrated in the south, right? Because it gets really cold really fast as you go north. But a lot of southern Canada, pretty much anywhere, and it ends up being pretty actually reasonable compared to temperature, right? So,
Toronto
yeah. And in that area around Toronto, there's a lot of people, right? It's close to like 10 million people.
Okay.
Yeah.
10 million? Okay.
Yeah. It's it's a third the population of the whole country in about I don't want to say area, but it's not too big. Right?
Your area,
Yeah. The southern Ontario area where all the people live by Toronto. But obviously Ontario is really, really big, right?
But not as populated as...
Yeah, it's super, there's like nothing in northern Ontario, it's just forests pretty much because of how cold it gets. But living around Toronto like I have, right, you get a lot of people and really they're kind of just cities beside cities, right? It's just kind of like a large kind of elongated city, the whole area, right? Not just Toronto, but all of the cities around it are all pretty much touching, right? You don't get a ton of countryside unless you go north, right? So my girlfriend and I are living in a small town, kind of in between, in the kind of east-west distance between St. Neots and Cambridge. And I'm really enjoying the whole kind of, basically set up there where you can kind of have a nice rural area, but pretty reasonably close to a large city, right, with Cambridge, right? Whereas, like I said, most of the places in Ontario, that's just not the case. If you want to be anywhere even close to a large city, you have to just live in a bunch of other fairly large cities, right? Or at least in Southern. So yeah, I really like that, and
The
you know,
countryside,
yeah, it's really nice.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's sort of the people that just get a bottle of wine.
What would you,
It's
what is
just
it,
like, it's just a,
so the thing that you would definitely
getting
miss from
something, you
home?
know, there's not anything that, they don't really expect.
Yeah,
Just
What
like
would you bring from Canada to the UK?
Christmas, you know.
yeah. So far, I'm not really missing a ton of stuff. Not because I don't like it, but just because so much of the stuff that was really important to me is very, very similar here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah. The one thing that you get a ton anywhere in Canada, but also in Southern Ontario, is that you get a lot of woodland.
Woodland.
Really, really close everywhere. Right? So you're always pretty much no matter where you are, you're like a 20-minute drive from a massive expanse of forest, right?
Yeah.
Which can be really nice if you like going hiking or just going for walks and that kind of stuff. And here you don't really have that, at least obviously in this part of England. But
Yeah.
in much of England, it's just a lot of intense agricultural land, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I guess a few more larger forests around here.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Yeah. But in regards to like the culture and just like people and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
like I said, it's very, very similar.
Yeah, nice, that's cool,
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least around here, right? Obviously, I can't really talk for a more kind of distinct area like London,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Cool. And what would you bring from here back home?
Sorry, what you gave her, what?
I gave her a car.
Yeah.
Right.
And then she owed me money because I got it on the road for her. I gave her a car, and then paid
I do like, and this is like one of the biggest differences. I do like just the fact that there's a lot of kind of more entrenched,
Yeah, it's a free
older, both like buildings and just kind of layouts of cities and all that. In Canada, obviously, everything is pretty much made within the past like 100 years. Like all the stuff that was made, 200 years ago, right? Pretty much has been replaced, right? So there's very, very few things, even like 150 years old there, right? Buildings or whatever. And there's kind of pros and cons of both of that. But one of the things you get, which is quite annoying, is that in most Canadian cities, because they pretty much laid it out in, kind of recently, with recent thinking of how the layout should be, things are just more, like they're farther apart, right? Like the roads are bigger and there's just a lot more parking lots and all that kind of stuff. So you get the case where just everything within a town is farther apart than it is here.
Yeah.
Which makes things be like a lot harder to cycle and walk to in Canada, right?
Oh yeah, that's bollocks. You don't want people
Which is
like
a really nice aspect of this, right? You have really narrow streets, right, and not a lot of parking here, which can be problematic, right? But the thing is, because of that, it means that everything's very dense, so that you can walk and cycle in like reasonable time, right? Yeah, like I didn't grow up in a huge town, but it was like right beside a bunch of huge towns, right? And the town that I grew up in order for me to like walk to the store, it was like a solid 45-minute walk. Yeah, just in my town to walk to the store. But the thing is that there were houses like right beside each other, right? And I wasn't particularly far relative to the distance to the store from all the other houses, right? It's just like, even if you're close to the store, it's still a long walk because there's a lot of just kind of, things are just a little bit too big, or too, like streets and that are just larger than they really need to be.
Well, maybe it's not necessarily kind of, it doesn't have to be that, but
Yeah. Now, obviously, you wouldn't really have that thing living in bigger cities and like living in Toronto or something. That's not the case. But even smaller towns here, right? Everything is just a lot closer, and it just makes it a lot more accessible and nice.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But at one point, there was only them.
Yeah.
They got one.
Yeah, the one thing I found interesting, and my girlfriend's joked a lot about, is that it's snowed here, which apparently, according to people that we've talked to, not a super common occurrence.
No, that's all.
And it was like -7
Yeah.
yesterday,
Yeah.
which also is apparently decently cold compared to usual for this time of year.
That is really cool. Yeah.
So she's been joking around that like we came over here, we were thinking it'd be a lot warmer in the winter.
T-shirt on.
Yeah.
Walk outside. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and some of our friends back in Canada, we've shown them how things are here right now, and they've shown us back in Ontario.
Yeah.
And it's like 4 degrees, it's nice, really sunny.
How much is that? Oh, there.
Yeah, it's like 4 degrees there, and then here we're at like -7.
Okay.
So,
It's the opposite.
yeah. So she's saying clearly it's actually just us. The cold weather is focused on us because we came here. We brought it with us.
Yeah. You brought it here,
Yeah.
yeah? Is that normal for that being just 4 or?
Yeah. In December, actually, it is. In December, it usually hovers around 0.
Uh-huh.
But into January, that's when it gets cold.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah. Well, it depends on the winter. The really big thing is that Ontario, like where we live in Ontario, is right on the edge of where a bunch of like polar air from the North Pole dips down.
Right.
And that's part of the reason why northern Canada is just so cold, is because that air mass descends quite far south over Canada every winter, but it does in northern Europe due to a bunch of factors, right? But the thing is that because southern Ontario is always just on the limit, some winters the like kind of longer term effects of the weather won't push it that far, and we'll get like between -3 and like 5 the whole winter. Yeah, the whole winter. And other times, by January, if the polar air mass does descend, you can get to like -20. And I've experienced about 4 or 5 winters where pretty much every day in January it was like -35.
Oh my god.
Yeah. February is usually a bit warmer, but not a ton.
Yeah.
And then March, it usually gets back to around 0. So, yeah. But pretty much always December is very mild.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. I know. Yeah. It kind of. The scale going up and down is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in the summer. Usually we won't have times when the summer is very cool, but like in June, July, pretty much every day is going to be like 25 degrees or warmer.
Right.
But we'll have some summers where like in July it's like 38, 39 degrees for like 3 weeks, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but most of the time during the summer it's over 30 degrees.
Thursday. Okay. Yeah. And that's just June and July, or July and August.
Usually June, July, August, kind of into the beginning and middle of September, and depending on the year, sometimes like a good chunk of May.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Good.
It's just really varied compared to here.
Yeah.
A lot
sounds
hotter,
like
a
it.
lot colder.
Yeah. It's kind of massively going up and massively going down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The real big influence there is the fact that it's by the lakes, the Great Lakes,
Oh
like
yeah.
Ontario and all that.
Wow. Yeah. Actually, maybe it's nicer to have this variation of really low and really high. I don't know, maybe that's not the actually. Then you can look forward to a real winter and a real summer
Yeah.
instead of always being in between.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
My girlfriend hasn't though, because she gets pretty cold easily and she gets pretty hot easily, right? Temperature regulation doesn't really go on for her, but for me, I'm always like way hotter than other people are, which really works out when it's like -35 out, right? Because I'm just out there in jeans and like a light coat. But in the summer it can be hard.
Too hot summer. I'm like, I like to have it not too hot and not too cold. And if it's cold, then I like it to be like kind of like you guys or like in Sweden
Yeah.
with snow and stuff at least.
Yeah, not kind
just
of like
cold and
around 4 and rainy.
But this
Yeah.
definitely one of the
Yeah.
parts I felt it, but this does feel
Yeah,
like
I can deal with like 35
Yeah.
degrees as long as it's not too humid.
yes,
But
I
I-
still agree. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have a really hard time with like above 35 and it being really humid.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Which unfortunately it's really humid most of the year in southern Ontario.
Yeah, is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the average humidity is about like 70 to 80%.
Ooh,
Year round.
yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, that's massive, yeah.
You know, you just not sitting with them.
Yeah, 7%, wow, yeah, that's lots. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, my girlfriend really has enjoyed, at least in the autumn, having the much more mild weather here.
Yeah, that can be nice. Yeah. I also like kind of a good springtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye. Oh, Rory, what are you saying? Huh? Well, I think that's beautiful girl. Beautiful girl.
Food is actually a lot cheaper here.
Is that okay? That's good. Yeah. So in Canada, you pay a lot.
Yeah, a lot more than you know, just kind of going into just a grocery store here.
Yes, yeah. So it's so the French more or less there-ish, or higher or lower?
Yeah.
Interesting what you give them. Interested in
Yeah, I think that's good.
they've got for
Yeah,
themselves.
okay.
Yeah. Right, as well, listen, the gentleman has the hair sticking out of his eyes, and I'm like, oh my god, forgot about those pages.
And finance, is it? That's what you studied?
No, I studied math.
Math. Oh, okay, beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I do mathematical finance. So
Mathematical.
mathematical finance.
Nice.
Right? So
That's great. Yeah.
certain aspects of finance that require quite a bit more sophistication in the math that you have to do
Right.
compared to, you know, just someone who gets kind of very basic mathematical education in like a business degree.
Yeah.
I definitely say that I enjoy the mathematical aspect a lot more than the financial aspect.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, because the financial part is probably just the commercial.
Yeah, like
and the math part is more fun. Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah, like the problem solving of more advanced mathematics I enjoy. You know, a lot of the stuff that's the business side of it is just kind of, you know, it seems very kind of repetitive and kind of very, very basic and just.
I see. Yeah, math can be really enjoyable, and it's still a certain degree. I also enjoyed math before. Obviously not definitely not your level, but I guess anything before, like maybe up to the 10th grade or 11th grade, before all the sinus and cosinus came up.
Yeah.
Then it's like common sense, and it's like it's a nice mix between math and physics.
Yeah.
But when when stuff like sinus and cosinus came up for me, then it became like something. It's in a sense magical, but it becomes a bit of chemistry. It's like suddenly it's not common sense anymore. It's just words that have meanings that mess up with math. And it's just not just the numbers anymore. I like up to the time when it was just the numbers and you can go crazy with numbers. And formulas and stuff.
Dealing with all the trigonometric stuff, right, the sines and cosines, I really didn't like that. And in fact, I did terrible in math in like pretty much like the last 5 years of my school.
Really? Okay.
It was only right at the end that I
Wow.
kind of like really pick it up because I knew that, oh, actually this is something that I'm gonna want to do. And I think it's gonna be
Okay,
really important.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. And then you still do that bachelor level.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, or even maybe higher.
Yeah, I definitely got a very bad mathematical education in, you know, we would call it high school, right? So that's like where you go from 14 to 18.
Uh-huh.
For me, it was really bad.
So,
For me, the education I got was really bad.
was it? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
And part of that was, I think, why I did so bad. But I actually am not naturally good at math whatsoever. Right?
Oh, really?
Like, it's always been
Okay.
very hard for me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not exactly that kind of person. The thing though is that in university, up until about second year, it's a lot more of the kind of stuff that isn't really that fun from high school, right? So like,
It's not fun.
yeah, like first and second year of university, it's just all that stuff where you just kind of, like you said, you just kind of magically have to kind of put stuff together. It's not super intuitive.
Yeah.
You just have to do it, and you kind of just training skills, really.
Right. Okay.
But third and fourth year are utterly different, right? Like you do what I would call like actual mathematics, right? Which is really a lot about problem solving.
Nice.
And really almost about like solving puzzles, right? And it becomes really intuitive again, and actually really fun.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I like that. Wow, that's a good story.
Yeah.
In fact, kind of, you don't have to be a super mastermind even like for your last year of high school or your 12th grade, but
Yeah.
you still, if you want to, you can make it. That's great. That's
Yeah. I didn't get great grades, you know, like I said, in between age 14 and 18, right, in high school. But also in first year of university. First year of universities, my average was like, it would have been based on the grade scale that they did, C plus, which is about 68%. Which I know here in the UK, in Canada for some reason the grades are way higher, right? The idea is that like pretty average grades are in the like 78%, 75%, right?
Good, yeah.
So I was significantly below average in the first year.
Below average.
Oh yeah. But that's like I said, like I had a lot of catching up to do, and I wasn't that great to begin with. But I just kind of really picked it up between first and second year, and then from there on, I got pretty much straight A's.
All right. Okay. Wow. That's good. I'm impressed.
Yeah. But the really fun thing the stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis is really enjoyable because a lot of it is very distant. It's pretty much the farthest you can get from the kind of stuff that's ugly, right? Like doing all this just bunch of solving little tiny problems using algebra, right? Like sines and cosine kind of stuff. But yeah, I actually do a lot of stuff with machine learning, right? That's really fun because it feels like you're more like painting, actually. You're more like painting than doing anything because so little of it is actually understood and is really, there's not very much of a science to it.
Right.
So it's just pure intuition. It's like,
Wow.
how do I combine all of these really, kind of unknown, complicated parts into something that does something interesting, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, nice. Is that so AI you mentioned?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that means you have to know some coding as well, or
Yeah.
you do? Okay.
Yeah, and that's also, that's easily been the hardest for me. I really don't like programming.
Yeah.
Way more than, but I've spent an immense amount of time practicing because I know that, I've needed it for what I have to do.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely good at it now, but I don't know, like, it
It's
is
not your
No.
kind of
But part of that is actually, I think, made me better at programming because part of me not liking programming, I think, has actually made me a lot better at it than what I would have been because I don't like doing it so much that every time I go and do it, I try to make sure that I do it in a way that I set up a system that the majority of the work will be done for me and I will never have to do repeat things, right?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, this way.
Yeah, which gets things
Because
done
you don't want to go
efficiently.
back to it.
Exactly. And really reduces the amount of total time I have to program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, but yeah, it's really fun, right? Because like just like how if you'd be painting, you can kind of do whatever you want, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever feels good, as long as it the end product is reasonably appreciable
Right.
to you or whoever you're painting for, or whatever.
Right.
It's the same thing actually with a lot of designing machine learning systems. Is that because nobody really knows anything about it, and a lot of it is just based off of how well your intuition about how these things are combining come together. There is something that is objective at the end, whether or not it's good or not. But how you get there is just so ridiculously complicated that you can pretty much do anything, right? Whatever you want.
Wow. Yeah. Oh wow.
Same
Yeah.
thing.
And is it what language do you use for that?
I use a relatively newer language called Julia.
Okay.
Yeah, it was developed at MIT. I originally used Python because that's kind of the
I thought that's
everybody.
the language for AI.
Yeah. Everybody uses Python. That's how I initially learned a lot of the programming I know was in Python. But the biggest drawback with Python, despite the fact that it's got a library for everything, right? Like somebody somewhere in the world has probably done what you've done before, and they've made just a way that you can just take their code right through libraries, and they put it on Python, right? So like for each programming language, they have different libraries because people have shared different things, and that's like the strongest point of Python. The problem with Python is that it's super slow.
Super slow.
Super.
Okay.
So if you want to do anything computationally intensive, you are going to run into a big rut really fast.
Oh, I see.
And that's what happened to me, is that I had to start doing things that were really, really computationally intensive. And I decided, you know what, I really don't want to do this. So yeah, I looked to alternatives, and the classic alternative to Python is C. Right? C is really fast. It's very flexible. Obviously, it's been around for a long time.
By slow, you mean like, let's say, like for example, these old editing programs or still now,
Yeah.
where they need rendering time and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You just have to sit and wait till
Yeah.
something is processed.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
before I came here, I was working on something, right?
Uh-huh.
And the thing that I was working on in Julia, right, was Julia, its speed is comparable to C, right? C is the fastest programming language, meaning that it can run things, it can do computation at the fastest that you pretty much have. That's a reasonable programming language. Julia is pretty much second.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Nice. I haven't heard about that.
Yeah, it's not very it's in very specific it's a programming language made specifically for scientific computing.
Uh-huh.
So Python is a
Yeah.
little more general purpose, but in a lot of kind of very specific groups of people,
Right.
usually scientists,
Right.
Julia has really taken hold. But it's only kind of very specific groups. Like so, for example, hydrologists love it.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And actually, there's been a lot of
You for a minute? Yes. Yeah, good. Cool. Thank you, please. Sorry.
yeah, that's okay. There's actually been a lot of work between the founders of Julia, right, who are from MIT. They work at MIT, and like NASA and a bunch of these other
All right.
big companies and
Scientific,
stuff.
yeah, big companies. Yeah.
To kind of switch things over to Julia because of how fast it is, and it's really simple.
I
That's the thing.
see.
Is that people like Python because it's simple. Julia is simple. Python's slow. C is
Yeah,
complex, but it's fast, and Julia kind of has the best of both worlds.
Kind of. Yeah. I see.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but like for something that runs on C,
Uh-huh.
Julia will usually be about 2 to 3 times slower,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
and Python will usually be about like 100 to 1,000 times slower.
Ooh.
So that's one of the
Wow.
reasons.
So how come the Python is so popular then?
Because it's really, really intuitive and really, really what do you call it? Easy to use, pretty much. You can just come in and pick it up, right?
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And there's been a whole other, a lot of the scientific libraries have just kind of been created for there, right? So some of the best scientific libraries in the world, again, it's just kind of code that people have already made, and really people have been researching something for like 40 years, come and create the best way to do something, right?
Yeah,
Because they've been
yeah.
working on it for 40 years. and then they just give it to you, and you're like, okay, well, this is clearly the best way to do this, and I can just use that.
And that sits in the Python's library. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah,
Cool.
the thing is that I don't have a supercomputer at my fingertips. A lot of
Yeah.
scientists do, right? Like you pick
Yeah.
a scientist out of a hat, they can just grab a supercomputer, get a bunch of time, and that makes the speed aspect of Python not too big of an issue.
Yeah. Oh, for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is for me.
Yeah. I see. Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, nice. Is that the way you usually wear your hair to the side?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How's it looking for you right now?
It's good. Yeah.
Anything more, less, shorter, longer?
I think it's good. Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. And the programming skills was the bit that you got at the uni, or?
I took one programming course in first year.
Okay.
And the thing was that I knew that there were specific courses I absolutely had to take because those were the things that I couldn't learn on my own.
Right.
So that ended up being a lot of pure math, right? So like, more advanced pure mathematical topics.
Right.
And then the stuff that I knew I could learn on my own, like programming and a lot of statistics, I didn't take courses in. I just learned on my own.
I see. Yeah.
Because they aren't.
Just close your eyes for a second. Very interesting.
Yeah. There are things that you can just kind of like read stuff and practice on your own, and that'd be fine.
Yeah.
But a lot of like pure kind of, when I say pure mathematics, I mean the stuff that's like as math can be, right?
Yes.
A lot of that stuff is really hard to learn if you don't have someone who already knows it that you can talk to.
Yeah. So some it's just better to be self-taught about it, and some others you really want someone to actually just
Yeah.
be in front of you face to face and teach you like, look, this is how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I took one course, which is a course on introductory programming that we did in Python in first year. And then afterwards, I just basically tried to do a random project in Python, just to do some small thing. And then to do that, I'd have to learn a lot, which I did. And then I did a bigger project, right? And some of these things I enjoyed, but other ones I knew I just had to do to increase my programming ability because it would be important, right?
Yes.
I just kind of did that on the side as I was doing my actual schoolwork all the way through the rest of my degree. And by the time that I graduated, I was pretty good at programming.
Nice. So you do it just for yourself?
Yeah.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah, I knew I'd be a lot more skilled if I, like I said, kind of just learned that on my own because I knew I could, and took the pure math courses because that would be more important.
Yeah. Nice. That's great. Wow. So you kind of from the start, you knew that you wanted to do that kind of programming as well, and you wanted the skills.
Yeah, I knew, unfortunately, that it's something that's important, right?
Yeah.
It would be a lot better if it wasn't important, because then I wouldn't have to do it.
Yeah. Nice one, honest kind of view, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about doing machine learning stuff is that, because like I said, because it's so flexible, you can really set it up so that you basically don't have to do any work whatsoever.
Wow, okay, yeah. Then the machine does it done for you.
Pretty much. Like, the idea is that to create like a machine learning system that does something you want it to do, you can actually basically set up a simulation of evolution, right? So just like how animals evolve and all these things, right? And you can pretty much get a bunch of these machine learning systems and cause them to evolve just like kind of animals do, right?
Wow,
And it's a really simple mechanism, evolution, right? You just need something that, you take something, you measure how good it is, right? And then you say that the ones that are doing better than the ones that are doing worse reproduce, right?
Oh my god.
So you just copy them, whatever it is, and then you modify them randomly, just slightly.
Wow.
And this is very easy to automate, this process. So what I have actually going right now is that while I'm here getting my haircut, one of these machine learning systems that I'm needing to create is working right now
Oh, is it?
at
Okay.
my home through this evolutionary process. But actually, when I get back, I'm going to take a look, and it's probably going to be much better at doing what I want it to do than it was when I left.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's one of the reasons why I use Julia is actually because these evolutionary algorithms take a lot of computation, and they're really hard to use with Python. But I like them because I don't have to do very much work. So,
That's nice.
yeah.
Is that kind of the principle of machine learning?
Well, yeah, like at the end of the day, you get a bunch of kind of, you get a task that you want to train something to do. And obviously you want it to do it so that you don't have to, right?
Yeah.
But I've kind of gone one layer up in the sense that I've also created a way so that I don't even have to train it to do the thing that it's later going to do for me. So I've automated the automation.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Well said. Yeah.
Minimal programming.
Minimal program.
Off, mate. It might actually work. Things like that happen, you might stop going up to the bed. No, that weren't nice, was it? You had your head squished. You see the box in the neck. You're alright, yeah. Just like Alice, didn't they? Oh. Oh.
Oh, nice, right? It's okay. That's the channel.
Why don't you go play this bit? Look, step up. Look, let's come in. What is this?
The funny thing is that actually the motivation in order to do it the way you do it, that's kind of automating the automation is that you actually, because you didn't like it. That's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you like drops down?
Yeah, and I think because I'm not kind of, like a natural math person or whatever,
that's what you
I mean, I definitely have certain things that allow me to do it, but I think that, my brother is a musician, right? He didn't even complete mathematics in high school, right? And I think that I'm only slightly different than him in this respect.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
I think that, there was a really just crazily rare, very, very strange course that actually led me to be, to doing this, right? Because like I said, I didn't really do well, even in university, on the math that's like the math you do in high school. Yeah, it was, it was all the really intuitive kind of fun stuff that I liked, right?
Yeah.
And that I ended up doing well with. But I think that, because there's some element of me that isn't, amazingly naturally a maths person, I think that actually helps me a lot because, when doing projects or whatever, especially with other people who, usually are, in the kind of work that I do, there's a lot of people who usually are very natural math people. I think it allows me to solve the problems in different ways.
Yeah. It's good. It's a combi of math mind and kind of a common sense mind. Yeah, nice. That's good. Hello there again. Quack, quack, quack. How you doctor?
Step up. You're gonna go, wait a minute, you're making this hard work, mate.
Any changes at all?
I think it's very good.
Thank you. So I can go back, that's this side, and
Yeah.
then the other side.
Good, yeah.
Good stuff there.